Today, placebos are taken for granted. Researchers regularly test new medicines against placebos, not because placebos don't work, but because they do. But how do they work? The placebo effect is sometimes defined as the effect of an inert pill. Somehow, the experience of knowingly receiving the medicine makes it more effective. In the U.S., 80% of people say that when facing a terminal illness, they would prefer to avoid aggressive life-saving treatment. This number increases to nearly 90% among doctors. This may be because doctors are more knowledgeable about the suffering and reduced quality of life after treatments such as CPR and electric shock. Charles Darwin worked hard, but he did not work long. He started each day with breakfast and a walk. At about 8 a.m., he'd work hard for a few hours, with a break in the middle to respond to a few letters. At noon, he'd have a leisurely midday walk, then enjoy a nice lunch, and respond to a few more letters before taking a nap. We value the heritage of our ancestors. Oral tradition might suggest supernatural beings inhabit a certain rock. The rock is then considered a cultural treasure. Our reaction to these concerns has varied. In some cases, we have delayed the construction project. This allows the elves to supposedly move on. Forest bathing is a practice which involves walking slowly through a forest. While walking, forest bathers intentionally experience nature through all 5 senses. Unlike hiking, forest bathing is not about exercising. Rather, forest bathing is about connecting with the forest and letting go of worries. Not having followed one's dreams is one common regret. Not having spent enough time with friends and family is another. But one thing people seldom regret on their deathbed is not having worked enough or not having made enough money. We all know there are more important things in life than the rat race. In one experiment, participants walked in the forest twice a day for 3 days. Afterward, studies showed that they had 40% more white blood cells. These cells boost the immune system. A month later, their immune system still showed a 15% elevation. Too much work not only causes mental stress, it hurts our physical health too. According to one study that looked at 43 years of data on homemakers, those who took fewer vacations were twice as likely to die of heart attacks. Another study that looked at British civil servants found that those who worked more hours were twice as likely to suffer from depression. Research shows that just a 15-minute leisurely walk in nature decreases the stress hormone cortisol by 19%. Blood pressure and heart rate also dropped. Considering that in the U.S., 75 to 90% of all doctor's visits are stress-related, this is very good news. The first step to doing more in less time is to get your focus dialed in. Try to invest your attention entirely in the task at hand. That means no multitasking. It's also important to take breaks. Productivity is increased when people take at least a 15-minute break every couple of hours. But the key is to take a break that actually allows the mind to rest.
Mother Teresa is remembered as a cheerful person who was always smiling, but her private letters showed another side. She called her happy appearance the cloak by which I cover the emptiness and misery. In the 1950s, she found herself in an existential crisis. She felt abandoned by God. But even as she struggled, she did not lose heart in her work. In 1928, researchers started tracking the lives of a group of 724 men from all walks of life. They are still following the lives of the 60 surviving members today. Their wives and children, 2,000 of them, are now part of the study as well. With the wealth of information that they gathered, they came to some very important conclusions. 3 things stand out. First, social connections increase our happiness, physical health, and lifespan. The power of shamanic healing is not agreed upon by all. While some swear by it, many dismiss it as the placebo effect. In other words, they don't think the shaman ceremonies can actually heal a person. They believe that the patient gets healed simply because the patient believes they will be healed. In conventional science, the placebo effect is something to be avoided. But this way of thinking might not hold water anymore.
Breath has been linked to well-being for a very long time, and not just because we need oxygen to survive. Pranayama, for example, is a Hindu breathing technique used to increase the vital energy of the body and mind. The benefits of this ancient practice have long been known, but Western science is just now catching up.
Forest bathing is a practice which involves walking slowly through a forest. While walking, forest bathers intentionally experience nature through all 5 senses. Unlike hiking, forest bathing is not about exercising. Rather, forest bathing is about connecting with the forest and letting go of worries.
Recent studies provide some insight into how to maintain healthy relationships. Relationship satisfaction tends to be higher when you express gratitude for your partner. Open communication, even about the hard things, is also connected to healthy relationships. And it's important to make time for play. Couples who experience exciting and enjoyable activities together tend to stay together.
In one experiment, participants walked in the forest twice a day for 3 days. Afterward, studies showed that they had 40% more white blood cells. These cells boost the immune system. A month later, their immune system still showed a 15% elevation.
Scientists at Northwestern University recently found that the rhythm of your breath enhances emotional judgment and memory recall. Interestingly, these effects only happened when inhaling through the nose. Exhaling and breathing through the mouth did not have the same effect. In other words, how we breathe is important. Breathing is a wonderful thing. It keeps us alive, and we do it without practice, thinking, or effort.
It's not about the number of social connections one has, it's about the quality of those relationships. They found that the men who were most satisfied in their relationships at 50 years old were the healthiest at 80 years old. In fact, relationship quality was a better indicator of future health than the usual things like cholesterol. Not only that, at 80 years, people's aches and pains affected their moods less if they were in a happy relationship.
Breathing techniques have also helped people deal with past trauma. Soldiers suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, are usually treated with medication, but the recovery rates are low. One study on the effects of yoga and breathing practices in veterans had impressive results. PTSD, anxiety, and insomnia decreased significantly in just 1 week.
After a 5-year voyage around the world, Darwin developed the theory of natural selection in 1838. For 20 years, Darwin's theory gathered dust. It remained unshared and unresearched. One day in 1858, Wallace came down with a fever. In his sickness, the explorer had a crystal-clear moment of clarity. It dawned on him that species evolved following a set pattern. The fittest survive because they adapt to their environment.
Many people today believe that superheroes are only in comic books and TV shows, but they actually do exist in real life too. Phoenix Jones is a Seattle-based real-life superhero who wears a full costume and fights crime. He has a small group of followers called the Rain City Superhero Movement. They all are trained in martial arts and act to defend victims from crime and assault.
Because elephants have a highly developed sense of smell, Wright and his team thought they might be able to use the bee's chemical alarm signal to affect elephant behavior. So the researchers tested out a synthetic blend of chemicals that mimics honeybees' alarm pheromones. In Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa, the team hung white socks treated with a synthetic mixture. All told, the Wild Book database now has over 5,000 citizen science contributors, around 30,000 whale shark encounters covering 54 countries, and more than 6,000 individual whale sharks identified. In the latest study using that data, researchers report that the number of known sites where whale sharks gather has risen from 13 to 20.
To see if animals really were changing their activity schedules, Gaynor and her team rounded up 141 studies of 62 kinds of mammals from across 6 continents. And they found that mammals near people across the globe have settled on a new strategy for survival. They take to the night when most of us are comfortably tucked into our beds counting sheep.
In Britain, a man called the angle grinder helps motorists unlock the wheel locks put on vehicles in the London area by police. Wheel locks stop people who have parked illegally from driving away. The angle grinder superhero has tools that are able to cut right through the wheel locks, helping illegal drivers escape.
Something that surprised me in the study was just how consistent the shift towards nocturnality was across types of human disturbance. We had expected to see animals being a little bit more discerning and perhaps responding more strongly to activities like hunting that actually do pose a risk to the animal. But what we found was that, whether it is infrastructure development or hunting or even just hiking,
Ben Underwood is another kind of real-life superhero with a true superpower. He is totally blind, but he can ride a bike in heavy traffic, play basketball, and live a totally normal life. His magic and heroism come from his ability to use sonar. He makes a clicking sound with his mouth and listens to the sound bounce off of objects. In this way, he can see.
In a way, this reaction is a good thing. The night shift allows animals to more safely coexist with us in shared spaces. But what's not yet clear is any long-term physiological changes animals may go through from adjusting their daily schedules, because many can't simply run away from us. Nor is it obvious what impacts these changes might have on broader ecological communities and on the food web.
In San Diego, California, Mr. Extreme is another real-life superhero. He wears impressive body armor and calls himself an evil suppression unit. Mr. Extreme fights violent crime and wants to do something positive and heroic. He has been the victim of violent crime after being attacked by gang members, bullied at school, and molested as a child.
The way young people are making friends around the world is changing. An Australian survey asked teens to focus on all of the ways in which they spend time and interact, both digitally and in person, with the friend who is closest to them. Many teens say they hang out with their closest friends in online settings, such as social media sites or through gaming websites.
Many companies are using the skills shortage argument. However, in reality, they should spend more time and effort recruiting or luring graduates with better salaries. Some companies are ahead of the game by offering more apprenticeships to get staff up to a suitable standard. Additionally, the government is taking active efforts to give visas to skilled people.
To some people, technology is controlling their lives. However, it is a mixture of positive and negative effects because technology like smartphones has brought enormous improvements. Take, for example, the impact of technology on communication. Smartphones have revolutionized the way items such as personal and commercial messages are sent with the electronic transmission of messages.
Many people think that mediums like TV and newspapers focus too much on bad news. They think that this is a trying issue for society to consider because it can lead to many other serious problems such as bad behavior, vandalism, and burglaries. By watching graphic images of such details on TV, people become hardened and then find it difficult to distinguish between right and wrong.
In the future, cars will automatically judge your driving and take some autonomous decisions. If the car decides you are angry and in danger of driving unsafely, it might adapt itself to make things safer. On the same grounds, a shop might use this technology to work out when customers are more likely to buy things, including things they probably don't really need.
Most Australian cities over the years have actively contributed to making their residents less physically active, as there is now less need for the public to walk anywhere. Yet, the health and economic benefits gained from the financial investment are clear for everyone to see. However, the government is spending more money on health and Medicare.
Geological and historical records are used to establish the nature of past coastal changes. Monitoring of coastal change is also undertaken using a broad range of techniques including laser technology and digital aerial photography. These techniques are used to determine coastal topography, coastal erosion, and shoreline position with high accuracy.
With three-dimensional and digital maps, modern-day cartographers have very sophisticated digital tools at their disposal to make sense, shape, and refine our place in the world, and to guide us. With the primary function of creating maps, as in the past, cartography as a science is still having a huge impact on human progress.
At primary school, the curriculum is constantly changing to keep pace with the modern world. While it is argued software programming should now be part of the curriculum, others feel that the focus should be on numerical studies. Some others believe that children need to play more at this stage rather than being bombarded by more technology.
The first groups of people to discover New Zealand arrived from Polynesia. Exactly when these explorers arrived has often been a matter of debate, but today the general understanding is that it was during the 13th century that their canoes eventually landed on New Zealand's shores. In some ways, the new country must have seemed like an ideal place to settle.
The birth of modern American dance occurred in the first years of the 20th century. And perhaps unusually for academics, dance historians hold remarkably similar views when it comes to identifying the early 1900s. We can see that dancers quite deliberately moved away from previous approaches.
Human beings enjoy a good laugh. It's such an obvious fact that it's easy to overlook. Laughter, like music and language, is a fundamental human trait. Common sense tells us that laughter is associated with happiness. However, there is also a body of scientific evidence proving that laughter and happiness are the secrets for long life.
On paper, biofuels seem the ideal replacement for oil, coal, and gas, the fossil fuels we depend upon, and which drive global warming and disrupt weather patterns by releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But the past decade has seen the biofuel industry face tough questions over whether it can truly claim to be green.
It is clear that large numbers of people spend a considerable proportion of their leisure time looking at their smartphones or similar gadgets. However, it is clear that there are two major reasons for this. Firstly, so much of our lives are now managed through these devices, and we are expected to be in touch at all times.
People from almost every culture like to collect things. They might collect stamps, books, cards, priceless paintings, or worthless tickets to old sports games. Their collection might hang on the walls of a mansion or be stored in a box under the bed. It is often a fascination to researchers that what is it that drives people to collect?
Starting in the 1980s, the widespread availability of the first video, and then digital cameras transformed filmmaking. The flexibility and low cost of these devices meant that anyone could now be a filmmaker. Amateurs working from home could compete with professionals in ways never possible before. The appearance of online film sharing platforms only increased the new possibilities for amateur filmmaking.
At the end of the flowering season, fruit is produced which in turn becomes seeds. These either fall to the ground or are carried by birds or animals to other places, or they are carried along by the wind. When they drop to the ground, they wait until the spring of the next year. Then they germinate and grow, and the process repeats itself.
Interest in measuring subjective well-being has grown considerably over recent years in the UK. Indeed, a number of major social surveys in the UK already include subjective well-being questions, and it seems that various policy areas could make use of these data. The question, therefore, is not whether to measure subjective well-being, but how to do this from now on.
Last year, the agricultural and meteorology departments at the university were given a $20 million grant, funded in part by the government and various companies in the food and agricultural industry, to conduct research into cloud seeding to increase precipitation. It is hoped that the benefits accrued will have far-reaching consequences for other drought-ridden regions of the planet.
Some people believe that the role played by technology in the studying process for the young is very important because compared to the past, studying is now much more efficient and convenient. For example, recent advances in areas such as mobile technology mean that information can now be accessed at any time and anywhere.
Currently, manufacturers are competing to create a type of green packaging. Packaging is a big element of marketing nowadays, yet a lot of it is harmful to the environment. This is because of many factors. When such packaging becomes garbage, it consumes a lot of energy, cartons and wrappers.
The increased standard of life today enjoyed by the inhabitants of many nations has resulted in a massive rise in garbage. This might have disastrous consequences for the planet's environment. There is no question that immediate action is required to protect our ecosystem from this impending tragedy.
Unfortunately, parking isn't always easy to get by. Several companies provide parking lots or garages where at least some of its workers may store their automobiles. The majority of individuals, on the other hand, must rely on public parking lots, which are frequently multi-story, or attempt to park on the street, creating chaos.
Some people frequently exploit their physical structure to frighten those who are smaller and weaker. Thus, despite the fact that education is a crucial aspect of a child's life, a rising number of youngsters are refusing to attend school. It's not that the job is too difficult for them, but they are terrified of their teachers.
Medicine has advanced to the point that more individuals can live longer. What matters is the quality of life, and people age in different ways. Some individuals live to be quite old and capable of looking after themselves, while others of the same age are not so fortunate. The worst part about becoming older is that the intellect frequently gets less awake.
In today's environment, educational degrees are seen as quite valuable. They are necessary for those who wish to work in professions and earn a decent living. As a result, most parents strive to motivate their children to study hard in school and attain academic achievement through good grades.
Individuals with disabilities are frequently regarded with contempt by capable people, as if they were little toddlers. A person in a wheelchair, for example, may be entirely disregarded, and queries like "Does he want black or white coffee?" may be directed to a companion rather than the individual directly.
Fans become enraged when they believe a referee has made a mistake, such as unfairly handing one of their side a red or yellow card, or failing to spot a foul committed by a member of the other side when tackling. The majority of the time in the field, this is pleasant, but problem might arise at any time.
Every year, it appears that an increasing number of individuals travel overseas for vacation. Unfortunately, this implies that an increasing number of individuals are experiencing the hardship and aggravation of international travel. This usually begins at the airport, regardless of whose airline you are flying with.
Parents' concerns regarding computer games are frequently related to their children's health and social abilities. They believe they should be outside getting some exercise and playing with their buddies in the fresh air. Because many of them prefer to play alone, they live fairly solitary lifestyles with little opportunities to contact with others.
The problem in progressing nations is that far too many of us are eating food that is neither healthy nor deficient in many of the vitamins that are necessary for good health. We rely too much on convenience meals as a result of our hectic lifestyles, instead of taking the time to create a nutritious meal for ourselves.
There is some skepticism about government's ability to regulate outputs. For example, governments can now limit the sale of dangerous commodities, such as weapons and knives, by requiring purchasers and sellers to get a license. But who will have control over the output of millions of 3D printers? we typically feel fantastic after eating chocolate. Even some health professionals don't refute it, because it's considered to have a biochemical effect on the pleasure-related region of the brain. If you're feeling down, some chocolate may be a genuine tonic that quickly lifts your spirits.
Most people are now fully aware on the consequences of smoking, whether or not they choose to take action and quit. Most non-smokers consider smoking as an immoral habit that gives them some inconvenience rather than a health risk. Still, many people do not yet realize that even being in the company of smokers can make them actually ill.
According to some scientists, organically grown food is no healthier than conventionally grown food, since the amount of pollutants in food is not high enough to be hazardous. However, organic food is becoming more popular, and this is not a passing trend. Certain people believe that some specialists aren't purely impartial about this.
In far too many countries, items that have been genetically altered are required to display this data on their labels. However, several big food manufacturers are now claiming that distinguishing this type of food from normal types is becoming increasingly difficult. Nevertheless, protesters continue to demonstrate against the sowing of genetically engineered agricultural trials.
Medicine's primary goal has always been to treat illness. Recent medical advancements, on the other hand, appear to be changing the lives of healthy individuals as well. Pharmaceuticals and many biotechnology-developed companies are growing in a new era of medicine in which people's thoughts and bodies will become far more powerful.
Governments have effectively managed traffic levels in the past by putting financial duties on drivers. Initially, they increased the expense of driving by boosting gasoline taxes or increasing parking fees. At the same time, they invested in rail and bus travel, making public transportation more affordable.
Watching movies was already a popular leisure pastime in the United Kingdom, even before Hollywood came to dominate the business. These films had a limited profile initially since people preferred other types of entertainment, and they were only screened after other performances in theaters or in abandoned stores.
A herd of elephants in Zambia comes every year in November to consume fruits from the same clump of mango trees. Some animals make cunning use of their surroundings to get food and assistance for their trips. A good example is the Arctic tern. It has the longest migratory route of any organism known to science.